So they have a very small museum of part of the convention center. Talk about Sam bass primarily. That's interesting. Somebody got in a shootout and then they had to give somebody some notoriety for it. So they got some historical stuff around. It's kind of interesting. So they keep these out in public, but make sure they're chained at the rock. They got a big Jenga thing. They're doing so much work on the main street, I think. Hot dogs marketing. Historic Round Rock. Yeah, they're doing a lot of work building up. I don't believe I drove over this bridge. Try to just get to the center and have a little look. Turn around and come back. I think it was primarily built for the train tracks. And I gotta say, my guts, it still hurts at times. And it's taking away my energy. I feel like I could go to sleep from just not even exerting much energy, just extra tired from this inflammation. All right, so that library is, well, it's really long. It seems pretty big. And there were 2 people sleeping in there when I walked. So it gives me the impression that there might be a significant homeless population here. But if there is, they're not under this bridge. Because this would be the most ideal place. It's at a dead end. It's open. It's not fenced. It's really clean. No homeless. Why do they dead end it? They don't want people going to the road? As a homeless person, you kind of, if you wanted to do individual, just be an individual and sleep in places, you're going to get really a bad response. You kind of almost have to group up with other homeless people in an overwhelming area to give yourself more leverage over the local area. Because if you try to one-man show an area and like put a tent underneath this bridge, just yourself, you're gonna get swarmed by cops and physically taken. You kind of need a group to give you some support. I wonder if it's possible that my heart beats harder in the hot weather compared to the cold weather because it takes more energy to activate my sweat glands as opposed to the brown fat that produces heat. Well, it was under my impression that Sam character was died around here. The way it sounded, he died, or he was shot 2 miles west of the city, and then was carried. He was laying in the grass, and the posse, the Texas Rangers, were about to pass him, and then he yelled out to them that it was him. He was laying in the grass dying, and so they carried him to somewhere around this area, and then he died somewhere. There's a stone. I saw the picture on the Garmin historic site, some kind of a stone. I don't think this is it. Oh. Okay, well, that signifies where the shootouts occurred around here. Then he was brought right back to the shootout, I suppose, and I guess you could say he was ambushed for one, and just somebody turned on him. Imagine if Chicago put up a sign every time there was a shootout. They'd have the whole city littered with signs, some in the same spot. And it seems like this Sam guy, Sam Bass. He died in 1876, and a lot of the signs on the buildings downtown, just for like a couple of blocks, just try to focus on around the year of 1876, like how the city stood during the shootout. Whoops. My watch is so encouraging. Oh no. You did it. Keep going. Why do you gotta make life harder on yourself? Well, the main reason is because resistance training in the gym builds muscle. So making life a little harder on yourself actually is good for your health. You know, thinking about the 1,000-mile trip I took from Rice Lake, Wisconsin to Bellingham, Washington, there was a lot going on in that trip. It happened over the course of 3 or 4 days, and I was in a race just to get out of the cold, because, well, the cops were putting pressure on me. The cold was coming in early July, and I mean, like record lows or something, -30, and I had enough. I had the spots on the red welts on my face from the cold, like the early signs of frostbite, and I waited till the last minute, but yeah, the cops were gonna tow my car, so I had Bob Simonson. He waited at my car, and because the cops like put a note on my car, and he was just driving by to check on me, and they said that they were gonna tow my car. So he waited at my car, and I was just out on a walk, and I had to have my head covered and all that because it was a really cold day. But I show up at my car, and there he was sitting in his car running, telling me that, yeah, we got to move your car, they're gonna tow it. So we had to buy a strap from this automotive place. uh I I think he paid for it, but he barely had enough money to buy the tow strap. And we were able to, as we're towing it, the cops were right there towing other people's car first. They came to my car first, but they saw me and Bob there getting ready to tow it out, and the cops were like, yeah, you could just tow it to the next parking stall over if you want, just to show it's running or something. And Bob was like, no, we'll take it to the retirement home or whatever. And we got it towed over to the retirement place, and that could only last like a night. One of the old ladies started complaining the next day about my car being parked too long in the visitor spot. So then after that, we towed my car over to an automotive shop because there was a problem with it. And I think back now, after my Idaho experience, there's a button that I could have pressed. See, I got a new battery for the car, and it still wouldn't start, and I just didn't know why. So I had to take it to the mechanics, and I never tried the button. It's like there could have just been a simple disconnect with the button. The guy at the automotive charged me $160 and said that there was a wire loose. I think he just pressed a button. It was like that trip for the gas tank or something. If you hit the underside of the gas tank, then the wire disconnects. Some kind of protective measure. That was probably all that they needed to do. And I was told that because that problem came back up where the car wouldn't start. It had plenty of battery life, but it wasn't getting gas. And all I had to do is press the button on the passenger side. There's something that reconnects, and it started. The gas line connected again. And that was probably something I could have saved $160 on, but I didn't know. So I got the car running, and then I started over like a few days later towards Bellingham. I figured head west. I didn't want to go straight south. I've been straight south in the military, and it wasn't very appealing to me. I was learning more about Washington and how the weather's stable. Straight west. I wanted to make that comparison too. I was like, it's -30, -20 in Wisconsin right now. What's it like in Washington? So 3 or 4 day drive straight west and compare. And lo and behold, it's what, 30. It's above freezing. It rains a lot, but it stays above freezing, and that was a great relief for me to not have to be exposed to such extreme deadly cold, so painful cold. You don't experience painful cold like that in Washington, but it can be a deep cold with all the wetness. But that drive was interesting. It was like I had to make several gas stops. And had some problems with payment with gas. One gas station didn't want to take my money or something in like South Dakota. I'm trying to remember now. I had a little difficulty. I had to prepay, and I can't quite remember. I should have made better notes of that one. There was another spot in South Dakota where some guys came up to me and asked if I wanted to buy a stereo system out of the back of their vehicle. And this might have been running up to Christmas, actually, not in January. I think it was Christmas time. And I told him, no, I can't really. I live in Wisconsin. And he's like, oh, you can drive it back there. And I'm like, well, I don't really have a home. Oh, you're homeless. So then they left me alone. But yeah, they're selling something out of the back of their vehicle. Yeah, I had to beat the snowfall. There was one point in Montana where a big snowfall was coming in, and I was at the gas station, and the guy could look on his phone for the cloud pattern and see that it was coming that way towards where we were, and there was an end to it. I could drive and kind of beat that cloud, get past it. So I decided to just really move fast, just get moving. Instead of stay the night there and get buried in snow, I decided to just keep moving, and did that. And there was some point where a guy was speeding past me in Montana on a very icy road, and 3 or 4 miles down, he was sideways on the road. I just kept driving past him. It was so icy. It was scary. I kind of wish I would have recorded him a little bit more, but I didn't. I had the iPhone 4 at the time for recording. But yeah, the guy was in a Suburban. He sped past me, and then he flipped his car, and I got by him. It's like, you didn't want to speed on any roads that were covered completely in ice. And then I slept in Idaho in this mountain town. I don't even exactly. I think I was looking for a gas station, maybe. I was relying on the GPS I had, the Garmin GPS. But I slept in this. It was really snowy and cold, but I had enough gear to get through it. It wasn't as bad as Wisconsin, but there's a small mountain town that was just beautiful. The houses were all lit up, and it was white from snow, and they were in a mountain. They were built up in a mountain. There were roads up in the mountain with houses, and it was just a beautiful display. And I can't even remember the name of that city, that town, just nestled amongst mountains all around. And but there's like not too far away a statue dedicated to the underground coal miners. I think coal, or maybe they were miners for other sources too. 100 guys died or 50 guys died underground, so they made a memorial for that. And I don't think that was too far away from that beautiful little town I stopped at. Um, but yeah, I had to. Oh yeah, I got scared too. Like on that drive away, like the mechanic I took my car to, uh, when they checked to see what was wrong with my car, they like didn't push the gas line back in all the way. You got to push it in till you hear a click. And they were just short of that click. So as I was driving in Minnesota from Wisconsin, the gas line came undone and it sprayed in my dashboard. It got all over and I lost power and I was on the highway. I didn't know what was going on. I just kind of played around with. I opened up the hood on the highway. Opened up the hood, took a look, and I was just confused. I looked at the gas line. I pushed on that, and I felt a click, and I was like, "Oh, this was probably what was the problem." It was a loose gas line, so I pushed that in. But I still stopped at a mechanic anyway, and somewhere in South Dakota again, and where my car was parked. Well, I explained to him my problem, and he was like, "Yeah, it's not a problem now. Doesn't sound like a problem, at least." But then I was stuck, so I had to because of the snow. It was just too slippery for my tires, so I had to have him push me out. I had to get pushed out twice. Once in somewhere in South Dakota, and then again in East Washington, east of oh no, west of Spokane, Cord, or I don't know, some kind of like airport or whatever. I forget the name of that town. Stopped at the library. There wasn't any snow when I got there, but the next day it was a good enough to get me stuck. I couldn't pull out on my own. So luckily, some young guy drove by, and I just said, "Hey, can you push me out?" And he's like, "Yep." And he said he hasn't. It didn't snow until that very day, towards the end of December, I guess. But it's quite an adventure to drive such the length of distance. I don't really ever want to do that again, to drive such a long distance in such a manic state. But natural disasters happen and weird things happen, so yeah, it's hard to say. But getting over those mountains, the Washington mountains that separate the tropical zone from that desert area, what are they called again? The Continental Divide or something. You could just see the tree line at the very top of the mountain. That's where the rain stopped. It was all dry throughout most of Washington, and then you get to the mountains and you see that peak, and you see it's just lush green trees right at the very top, and after that, all the way to the coast. It's just such an amazing rain shadow that's along that line. Um, yeah, it's quite an adventure to do, uh, and it was out of necessity. The cold in Wisconsin is just too much. I could have gone east. I could have gone to like Florida, straight south, or Louisiana or something. And I've done the straight south drive back in '96. But I wanted to do a little something different and just head straight west. Um, yeah, that was what an interesting drive to take. All right, so I had prune juice, half of this container, and it just ran through my butt pretty much. I've been just pacing around Walmart and then running to the bathroom, pacing, running to the bathroom, and it's just been a real ordeal. I think it's run itself clear. I have half left. I'm scared to drink the rest right now. I wonder if I should have done the prune juice first at the onset of the gut pain. I think that's something I would like to try next time. I would never do the cayenne and prune juice at the same time. Do prune juice the first day, and then cayenne the next 2 and 3 days, and then maybe apple juice cider on a fourth day as some kind of a strategy to deal with this pain. I I don't think I'm not doing enough with the cayenne. I still suffered for pain with inflammation pain the first 2 days with cayenne, so that's not really a good solution. Oh, all right. So it's 3:36 a.m. The prune juice, it went through me liquid-wise, and now I'm really, really bloated. It's jacked up my blood, my beats per minute to 90 at resting, and it's really a lot of discomfort. I'm having a tough time dealing with this, and I still have the inflammation. So I'm dealing with the bloating from the prune juice and inflammation now. I guess prune juice is not a good idea. I bought a big bottle for $5 and drank half of it. I figured would be good. It's been a long time since I played around with prune juice, and I'm really paying a heavy price. It's so strange about this because the 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 prune juice is supposed to be the remedy. So no, I can't really seek a remedy from the remedy.